I'll clean these shutter components now and start reassembling things. So I'll start with the body of the mechanism plate here, and I'll just start with a bit of solvent on a Q-tip or cotton bud or whatever they're called in your neck of the woods, and I'm just swabbing that carefully, making sure to remove any traces of old grease or dirt. The Q-tip's coming away very clean, which tells me that there was never a problem with stickiness there. I'll just wipe these other surfaces. Now here, there's that fine return spring for the blade setting ring, and I've got to be careful not to lose that or disturb it, and so I'm being quite careful. Pop that to one side. Here's their ring, and I'm doing the same there, just making sure that it's nice and clean. The Q-tip's just coming away like it straight out of the packet, so there's certainly no problem there. And I'll see if I can assemble these two components together. So I'll pull that return spring completely back out of the way so that it's not likely to get damaged. Now this goes in, it's got three legs on it basically. We've got three positions there, so it's not hard to decide how it's going to drop in. Line up these little cutouts with the bosses, swing the thing round into position. There it is. And I can hook that return spring back over its boss there, being very careful not to lose it. Because that would be a bother and a nuisance. Okay, so return spring's in place. There was also this retainer that stopped you from being able to physically move that around too far, and that's screwed on right here. It's an odd arrangement. It's obviously been made to do the job, but they didn't shape the outside edge of it to the mechanism plate very well. Perhaps it was an item used in common with another model, so it doesn't sit neatly there, it sticks out. Anyway, it's just get that screw started, square that edge up as much as I can so that it's sitting level, nip that screw up. Right, now that ring can't fall out, it's clean, snaps back into place smoothly. That should be fine. Pop that to one side. I want to deal with these blades. We've got 5 blades here, and they're all a little bit oily, but apart from that they look quite good. So I'll clean those again with a cotton bud, and I will have a toothpick to manoeuvre them about so that I'm not having to handle them too much with tweezers, and so I shouldn't mark them with any luck. That sun is shifting round on me. I'll just move that into the sun again. That's a bit better. The end of the day here, the sun's moving round fairly fast. You can see the dirty marks on the paper there perhaps. That's the oil coming off those shutter blades. I'll look at them closely. If it's discoloured like that, sometimes it means that there is some corrosion there, and what you're actually seeing is a mixture of oil and rust. But most likely that's just oil. What happens with oil over time is it dries out. It shouldn't be there to start off with, it's migrated there from elsewhere, but basically they lose their most volatile components and they get stickier and stickier over time. They probably chemically break down with other processes too, some sort of oxidation process, and you probably end up with all sorts of horrible things going on. Sometimes when oils have been sitting there a long time and they've lost all their volatiles and they've oxidised or whatever the hell else it is that they do, you're left with just something like a lacquer. And that just is really good, it sticks things together. Alright, those blades are all clean. I'm going to inspect them very closely now. I'm looking obliquely at the surface in the light to make sure there's no sign of corrosion. And there's not, they all look clean, they all look uniform. To tell the truth, they all look like they have never done very much at all. So far so good. So that's our shutter blades put aside. We can just about load those onto the ring, I think. I'll need to check and make sure I know where number one blade was, so I'll check on my camera and that will tell me that number one blade was here. And the blades were assembled in a clockwise fashion. Often with shutters, it doesn't matter which order the shutter blades go back on. In some cases it certainly does. In some cases certain shutter blades have a cutout, they only go in one position. That's good, we'll pop that to one side. I have the shutter blades back on the mechanism plate, all back in the correct order, nice and clean, and that we can pop to one side. What I want to deal with now is the diaphragm mechanism, and the diaphragm mechanism in this case is two blades. It's a fairly simple construction. And so I need to take that apart. So if I find the right size screwdriver, got two screws, two brass screws here holding that plate in. Quite small, I'll pop that in the container so I don't lose it. And its mate. I'm looking at the retainer plate. The holes are not 180 degrees apart, they're somewhat less than that, so it can only go back in one place. The screw holes are countersunk, so I know which surface is up. I can pop that to one side. And here we have the mechanism. And you can see roughly there how that works. So we'll remove the top blade. remove the bottom blade. They're a bit marked, but they're not too bad. And just check this mechanism, see if there's anything loose that needs to be tightened up. So I'll just check the screw heads, make sure everything is snug. There's nothing rattling loose in there, so that just needs a wipe with a bit of solvent just to pick up any dust, any odd bits of oil or grease or contaminants that are in there. It looks quite clean. That spring returns that lever in that direction, that's fine. That lever is smooth and snappy in its action. So this is the outer case of the shutter, so I'm just going to give it a clean now around the back. These aren't really working surfaces, but they need to be clean regardless. This is where the retaining ring fits on this thread, so I'm just making sure that there's no bits of rubbish and things in there. There's a slight mark in that thread there, not sure why that should be particularly. If there's any roughness there, sometimes it makes it hard to fit on the retaining ring. Oh, of course the retaining ring on this one was reluctant to come off, wasn't it? Okay, so I'm just giving a wipe around that, and I can see that my efforts have been rewarded by removing a little bit of the black paint there. So I will cheat. If I can find a marker, if I can find a black marker that will do the job, and I've got one right here, I'll just cover up that little bald spot. No one will be any the wiser. Right, so much for the case. We can pop that to one side. I need to deal with these blades, clean them, and then pop them back. And first I'll need some more cotton buds. Back in a minute.